Thank you for joining me today. I am working on a small window seat. Because I'm putting velvet on and I think it looks a little bit more posh, I'm going to be putting piping on it, but instead of putting a zip in, I'm going to hand sew it shut. So let's get on with it. If it goes around, is 14.5. So 15.5 should be plenty. If I pop that here and pull it across to here, it is 36.5. So 36.5 will be 37.5. So I'll cut this at 37.5 and 15.5 inches, and I need two pieces that size. I'm going to measure off at 37.5 inches. I'm not going to stretch the fabric. All I'm going to do is pull it across like this till I get to 37.5. Actually, I'm going to make it 37 3/4. Mark that there. Only because I'm putting a little bit more padding in, so it'll fill it out a bit. So what I'm going to do now is put my measuring stick on the end where the selvage is. Find my mark here, and I'm going to adjust it down so it's a nice round number. I'm going to be cutting it out at 19.25, which is more or less where I want it to be cut anyway. It's 1/8 difference, so that'd be fine. And I'm going to cut on up. The leftover fabric here I'm going to use in the piping. I'm going to guesstimate where my 15.5 is. I'm going to overcut for this. I know this is a little bit wonky and I want it straighter, so I am going to measure off 16 inches for this one, like that. Selvage edge to selvage edge. Make sure it's nice and even, and I'm going to cut along the folded line. Maybe it's right, it just looks like it's wonky, because the way this is going I can see where the velvet is and it seems to be going uphill, so I might have been right, because I have taken fabric off here before. Straighten all of that out and then carry on up. Here's my selvage edge. I'm going to turn that up the other way because I thought that this side was wonky and I have a feeling it maybe wasn't. You never know until you cut things out. So I'm going to cut it back to 15.5 on this side. It's just the way the fabric has been stretched when it was put on the bolt. At least I know for the next one I don't have to be quite so cautious. It started off quite well, but it does appear to be more wonky than I thought it was. Pull that off, then I'll cut the next piece to the right size. Wasn't that wonky, but even so, I prefer to start with straight sides. I've just folded this diagonally so that I can get the piping out. So just up here on the fold, and then cut it 1.5 inches in strips. Now the pile goes down, so when I sew it, I'm going to sew it from that end. That is the pile going down, so I'm going to turn that over. The pile will be coming down this way. If you push the iron back, means the pile on the other side will be pushed into place. I'm lightly steaming this and then iron up. Well, that looks a lot better. You can go sideways, that's okay. Not too hot, you don't want to damage the velvet in any way, so side to side's okay. And then brush it back down into position. I think that will do. The pile comes down there and down there, so everything's facing the right way. Put one piece on top of the other at right angles. And one of the smallest stitches, I'm going to sew from the top here to the corner there. Fold that over. You can lay this one like that, and again corner to corner. Pop the piping cord in there, fold the fabric over, slide it under. This is really slippery fabric. Start a little ways down, or the longest stitch you can, and sew. Let's try to keep those raw edges together. When you come to a join, cut the ties and then cut back to within 1/4 inch of the seam allowance. Open it up, lay your cord across and carry on sewing. Sew over the seam and carry on down. I'm going to start on the side. This is down for the pile, just like I would on a pillow. Start about midway, and then I know which way is up and down, because I always go to the side and to the bottom of the pillow. It's on the longest stitch. I'm going to sew to the first corner. Just before I get there, I'm going to put my scissors on the corner and cut the flange, not too far in. Needle down, foot up and turn. Pull this right back like that and allow it to slot into position. And then sew all the way across the front as evenly as you can. And when you get to the following corners, cut up and allow the piping cord to go on round. This is where I started. I'm going to give it a generous 2-inch overlap. I'm going to open this up just a little bit further and this one as well. This piece goes this way and I'm going to overlay that and go the same direction a bit further down. I'm going to fold that over like that, cut that at a 45-degree angle. Let's undo that a little bit further. So now I have that and that put together. Before I put the piping together, this is down and that's down. I'm going to put those on top of each other like that, and I'm going to sew a good 6 inches, I think. I'm going to go around 2 sides at least, so everything is in the right direction. Hold the corners together like that and sew to the corner. I don't need to cut anything because everything's ready to go. So into the corner, push the piping down when I get there. To the corner, I'm going to just go across a couple of stitches to make sure that that edge is hidden. Twist everything into position, foot down, straighten my corners out like that, hold them in place, pull the bottom against the top and make sure that the raw edges are together. Just as you come into the corner, almost get to the corner, needle down, foot up, twist slightly, 1, lift the foot up, and I'm going to sew. When you're doing a long edge, put your corners together like that. You can clip the middle if you want to. I'm just going to pull it out towards the middle and guide the fabric into place. And on to just before the join of the piping. The velvet rolled, you can tell that because of the way the stitching is on that side and not on this side. So all I'm going to do here is pop it back under, and I'll check all the corners before I put it together because I don't want that. Pop it under facing the other way. It's not going to roll anywhere because the fabric's already in place. And then again into the corner and round. Some velvets do that. This is not a cotton velvet, so it's a little bit more slippery. Again at a 45-degree angle and across. Checking that corner again, and it is as snug as I can get it. I'll check all the corners to make sure that they're snug like that. I'm just double checking where I am. That's the end there, that's the end. That's midway. So I'm going to put my pieces together. It's a good 1/2 inch. Slide that under the foot at the 1/2 inch mark. Make sure the 2 raw edges are together. One of the shortest stitches, actually I'm going to push that up because that doesn't look like it's even at the top. And sew straight across. Now all you got to do is pull that out. If it looks even like that, you've got it in the right place. If this is gaping down and the top is flat, then you have to let it out there. And if this is gaping up and this is straight, then you're going to have to allow a little bit more there. But I think that's perfect. I'm going to pop this back underneath the foot and I'm going to straighten this out, cut it at a 45-degree angle here. I don't like it to be on the seam. Pull this one out because you don't need it just yet. Open your seam, put your cording across like that and sew into position. When you almost get to that join, stop. Make sure that's still really flat on the inside. Open that, line that up with the cording there and cut that at a 45-degree angle. Push that on top of the original cording inside and then sew on down. So as far as you can, then pop it back underneath, pull any stray threads out, even it up and sew across the join like this. Because I sewed the second side on to there, I'm going to slide that underneath I'm going to sew to the top, line the top of the underside and the top side together, and then sew up the second side of the pillow. Keep all the raw edges together, and when you get to the top, turn it along the top of the seat cushion, and then sew several inches along the back like this, and reverse. Just going to check the last two corners, make sure they went in okay. If not, I'll have to make those alterations. That looks pretty good. So does that one. I'm going to remove this cover. I think what's in here, because of the softness, is just Dacron. And the reason is this has a ridge to it, so I don't really want the ridge resting against the velvet because it will cause the velvet to wear. I'm going to take that out. Lay this one on top of another piece. This has been sat on a few times and it has lost some of its plumpness. It will all stick together, so it's not really a problem. To the end. Perfect. Like with any other pillow, I'm going to have to make sure all of that goes into the corners on both ends. It's a little bit plumper than it was. It'll be fine. It will settle down. Make sure it's smooth if you've done it this way. Pull that up and then push that over about the width of the seam, like that. Put them together and put a pin in just to hold it. I'm going to work to the center from each end. Again, the width of the seam and into place. And again, until I've got it all pinned into place. Try only to get the pin on the top, not all the way through. And then I should have the center more or less in the center. I don't want to put too many in. As I take them out, I'll move them around where they need to be. I'm going to remove that pin and pop it a little ways further up. And with the needle, I'm going to come round and bring it out quite close to the end. Just make sure that's still a seam width in, because you're going to go along the piping to the start of the original seam, about 1/4 of an inch piping side and then the closure side. And I do about 3 or 4 sets of stitches like that. Put my thumb on there and slowly pull it through so no knots, and across to seal it. Adjust, make sure it's still seam width in, and 3 or 4 sets of stitching. And when I say sets, it's either side is a set. So that's one set, that's the second set, there's the third set. Keep a thumb on the side that's being pulled through, is usually a good way to start, and then on through. I'm going to do that all the way across, and it should go in really nicely. They only need to be about 1/4 of an inch long. They shouldn't be any longer than that, and you certainly don't want them much smaller than that. Now I'm using upholstery thread to do this. My last stitch on this side, so I've got maybe 2 more stitches. I can put them in separately so I come in at the right place. Now I'm going to go across and out along the piping. I'm going to go back a little way and out along the piping, back a little way and out along the piping like that. It has a long tail, it's not going anywhere, and then I'm going to cut it. Perfect. Check to see there's no threads anywhere. Thank you for joining me on this project. It's quite a simple one. The method used is the same as a scatter cushion. It's got a little bit of padding in there and it sits really quite nicely. I'm sure my friend will be really pleased with that. If you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up would be brilliant. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao.